1/1/2020. Once again, my curiosity overtook my common sense, and this is what I found. It's a 16 projector from most probably 1940s. And the only thing which I understand in this is these tubes, which are part of the audio amplifier. And I don't know, how does it work? It's in bad shape, as always. That's the documentation. Pretty well laid out. And this is the good part. I got some spools of film as well, 16 which came along with it. Actually, someone gave the whole thing to me. Let's take a break from the scopes and try something else. News Parade of the year 1945. News Parade. No date stamp. Bunch of other spools without anything specifically written on it. Okay, so that's an empty one. Take up spool. That's beautiful. This does contain something. Oh. Okay, we have daylight now, and this is the condition of the whole unit. The wooden case seems to be almost rotted out, so I might have to rebuild that to start with. And that's a cap, which is also in bad shape. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I will try to fix the piece which probably I understand the most, which is the amplifier sitting right inside here. And that is connected via a bunch of cables. One of them is right here going into the amplifier unit, and I guess there is one more cable somewhere in the back. So I'm going to disconnect those cables and pull the projector out, and then we will think of the amplifier. These are the holders for the spools to hold the film. They go in like this, I believe. Yeah, that's rusted as well. That's a projector unit. There are 3 cables. Probably this is for the lamp, and I guess this is power to the head, I believe. Not sure what it is. And this is another connection going to the amplifier. I'm pretty sure this is the audio in. And let's have a look at it from the other side. That's how it looks out of the box. Fortunately, the lens is intact. I hope so. And the lamp should come out as well. Let me see if the lamp is there inside it first of all. Oh yeah, that's the projector lamp. Hopefully that's not blown. Looks intact. I'm not gonna touch that now. Let me keep that back. Okay, that's the belt for driving these spools. There's one more piece of belt sitting here which is hooked to the cabin or the cabinet, and this is the amplifier. Interesting. Something familiar finally. A bunch of glass tubes and a transformer. Okay, so let me take out the amplifier. That's the amplifier. So I'm going to clean this guy up first and then look into the tubes, maybe try to understand the schematic, and let's figure out what's going on with it. And this is the power cord for the same thing. Apparently broken, but it's okay. That's the unit after cleaning. I've cleaned the tubes as well. I mean, physically clean the tubes as well. And this is how the interior is now. These boxes, what you see, the square boxes, they are capacitors. And now the unit is bench ready, which means it's clean enough for me to take it to the bench. Okay, so I have cleaned the amplifier, recapped it. You can see all the capacitors, whatever I've replaced. All the paper plus electrolytics, I just replaced all of it. And now it's sitting on a variac with a speaker, which I just connected to the socket out here. And put a fuse as well. There's a cap for the fuse which is missing, but that's okay for the time being. And I'm running about 56 volts to the input. I've tested all the tubes. None of them are short, and all of them are pretty good from a transconductance perspective. Since it's an audio circuit, I even tested the transconductance to ensure that it's all good. So the tube lineup is 6J7, 6C5, 6 and 6, and this is the rectifier. So basically this is the rectifier and then 3-stage amplifier, this being the final output. And this is the power transformer which is sitting on the top. This is the audio output, and that's the choke. And I'm gonna let it warm up for a while. Let me switch off the light and show you the heater, the filament. This is the liquid for enhancing the transconductance of the tubes. You typically consume this before testing the tubes to get good transconductance. You can see the filaments are lit halfway through, so I'm gonna let it warm up for a while, then I'll go full line voltage and see. It's alive. I can hear the speaker humming, and this is the input from the projector where the audio pickup signal comes in, and if I touch this, so the amplifier is alive. All I need to do next is to maybe pump up the voltage to the line level and test it out. That's all I can test now, and then now I'll proceed to the actual projector. I'm gonna let this warm up for a while. If there is any moisture somewhere, want all that to go away, and then I'll increase the voltage. And I guess that's all for the amplifier. That's the easy part of the job, and now I'm going to get into the projector. A quick bit of safety advice. I'm doing all the circuits on an isolation transformer. Okay, so the actual amplifier is connected to the isolation transformer, not to the direct main. So the isolation transformer is plugged to the variac, and then the output of the variac, which comes into the isolation transformer, I'm taking the isolated output, and then that is what is plugged into this amplifier. So just for your information, in case if you are trying to work on things like this, please make sure that you use isolation transformer. Do not try it on live circuits or grounded circuits. Never do that. Safety first. So that's one thing which I want to specifically mention. That's a projector being disassembled. I'm going to strip it and clean it, and then I'll put it back together and see if it's coming back to life. And this is the lamp housing, but I've removed the lamp and kept it inside to be on a safer side. That's a shutter, and I can open the shutter assembly here. Sorry for the bad lighting. So I've also removed this assembly to clean it. So let me do all the cleaning, and this is the cover which holds the lamp, and apparently this is a power connection which is coming in from the main amplifier through this cable, and this is what is fed into the motor most likely. That's the belt, motor, and rest of the drive mechanisms. Oh, I don't know what that is. And I can see the motor sitting inside. This belt is controlled by this lever, which kind of probably is engaging the whole system. You know, all of these things will have proper names. I'm sorry, I don't know what these things are called, but I'm just giving them my own names to, understand or call them a name. That's for the rear cover off, all the gears and drive mechanisms, and most importantly the capacitor. This is what I was looking for. So that's one guy which definitely needs some attention, and of course the motor is sitting right behind it. So continuing to the main portion, this is the photo cell. You can see here, and that's used for the sound pickup, just in case if I didn't explain it before. And this is the bulb for it, which looks like broken. I'm not sure. I need to give it a try and see if it's broken or not, but most likely, oh no, it's not. It's good. So that's what gets the sound of the film. So let me keep this bulb safe. And this assembly is supposed to be the lens for the sound pickup. So he generates light, focuses it, or aligns it or whatever, and then sends it to the photocell, which is sitting on top. And that's what is the sound pickup, which gets amplified by the amplifier. Okay, so at least one piece I know for sure how that works now. And this is a motor which is encased here, and this is the shutter assembly. In case if you're not familiar with what a shutter is, please do look online. I don't want to repeat the information which is already there. This is where the film passes through. I'm pretty sure one of you or many of you viewers will be laughing at what I'm doing here, but believe me, this is the first time I'm seeing a projector this close, even though I wanted to get hold of one for a very long time. So anyways, some more discoveries. This is basically the whole sprocket through which you can spool the film. You can see the teeth by which it grabs the film. So while threading, you kind of lift these things up and then push it through. Interesting. And this is the tensioner. And yeah, let me find out what. Oh yeah, there is go. There's more things which you can move around. Okay, now this is connected to a switch as well. If you see this, not sure if it's in focus or not. See that guy is a simple toggle switch. Interesting. Surprisingly, this is the shutter. If you look at it, this is what cuts the light off, this particular fin right here. So that is the shutter, and that's the aperture window. So if you see, that's what is happening. It's all aligned perfectly so that whenever you move the sprocket or the film or the frame, you cut the light. See that? And then if I come back and watch here, this is what is advancing the film. I'm not sure if you can see that clearly or not. Watch this as I rotate the film. There you go. That's what is moving the frame up and down. That's a sound head, so called, or whatever the stuff which picks up the sound. So the film gets wrapped around this roll and passes through, and the lamp sits inside this, and this is the lens. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there is a tiny slit right in the middle of it. If you can watch it carefully, that's what passes a small beam of light, which goes through the film where the soundtrack is encoded as a optical marking, which gets picked up by the photocell, which is sitting right on top here, and that's how you get the sound. That's a lens out of the projector housing or whatever you call it. That's dirty. I hope it's not a serious damage. Let me see. Okay, starting with the pilot bulb GE51, 6 to 8 volt. This is bad. Fortunately, I had one in stock. So let's start with the simplest possible fix, replacing the pilot bulb. That's a projector after first round of cleaning. I'm not done yet. What I found was almost all these rollers were locked up, including these ones, so I have to remove all of them and clean and lubricate. So do this, and so do these rollers. So they all were locked up, which is not a surprise. So anyways, let's put our pilot lamp in and do the first fix. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to do the next round of cleaning and then get into the underside of this, where we have to look at the motor, the capacitor, the starting capacitor, and at the same time I'm going to do a detailed cleaning around the whole projector. That's the underside of the projector, the motor, and there's a resistor inside. If you can see, that's a big wire wound resistor, potentially part of the schematic for speed control. And that's a motor with its brush and governor, most probably for the speed. And the capacitor behind this guy should be coming in somewhere here. Oh yeah, that's right here. That's where the starter capacitor most likely is sitting. So that's something which I'm going to test now. Also, I've fixed the bushing here for the photocell. So I put a proper rubber bushing there so that I could clean all the gunk out there. So that's also done. So I'm going to test the capacitor, try to do a little bit of reverse engineering around the circuit to understand how it works. Okay, so I'm done with all the cleaning, more or less. I guess it's probably okay at this point in time from a cleanliness perspective. And I've hooked up power to these terminals here. These basically take power from the cap which goes over here. So I've hooked the power directly and connected it through a variac, a multimeter, and an isolation transformer. The same setup, just to make sure that I don't kill myself. Then let me test the motor now and see if it's going to spin up. I would assume the motor should go up now. There you go. That's pretty good. He's doing this at 45 volts AC input. He's spinning. Okay, so I'm going to run the motor for a while until it kind of gets all the lubricant and other stuff spread all over it, and give it a little bit of an exercise, and then I'll go for the spin up with the belt engaged. And for records, the starter capacitor is good. I've tested the value, that seems to be good, and of course the motor is spinning up as well, so I don't think there is anything wrong with the starter capacitor. And other than that, I don't have any active components in here. By active, what I meant is the exciter lamp, which is for the photocell, that's off. I've removed even the photocell, that's also not there. Of course, and the lamp assembly is also off. So it's just the motor which is at this point in time, enabled or alive in this unit now. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage the belt and the whole shutter and the entire assembly, and then try to power it up and see if it's going to start moving. Yep. Yep. It's about with 110 volts. Let's try once again. You can see the spools rotating. This is anyway freewheeling, so that's fine. And yeah, since I've bypassed all the connections which controls the spool in terms of a broken film, it's not going to stop. That's why everything is spinning. I'm going to give it a little bit of a spin, a little bit of a warm up to see if everything is holding on, and then we will continue. I'm still doing the testing, and you can see how it moves the film sprocket through the shutter aperture to get the image projected out. And of course this is a shutter which is spinning to block the light every time it moves the frame or the film up. That's all the pulleys around it to keep the film in tension. Of course I don't have the exciter or the lamp or the photocell, so it's going to be no light around this thing anyways. So I'm going to leave this for a while to warm up, and then we will continue. I've just noticed with the load on, the switch does have an impact. So right now he's in silent mode, and if I move it to sound mode, I hope you can hear the difference in the noise, which is basically the speed. So silent movies are slower. Okay, this is where we stand as of day 4 in terms of cleaning and putting it back together. So I thought I'll give you a quick overview of all the research I've done among these models and what did I find. So let's start with the first thing. The exact plaque which says the model number and other details are missing from the slam house. You can see the rivet holes, but the plate is missing. Now the stamp over here says it's model 11 right here. Now, which means this is not model 40. This is type 11. It says actually not model, it says type 11. So this is not model 40 because the model 40 has got only 2 guide rollers right up here, and this one has got 3. So I don't know what model this is specifically of Victor Animatophone, but I mean, I have no idea. I could not find any exact matching documentation. The model 40 amplifier tube layout is also different, so I don't think this is model 40. However, most of the stuff is same. There isn't much difference from a mechanical layout perspective. There is differences in the amplifier, but that's fine. You know, that's not something which concerns me. So let's start with the controls from the amplifier first. Simplest one, that's the volume control. That's for the tone. This is the main power. This is the speaker output. That's a fuse which I put in. There's a box for the fuse which is missing, and this is the exciter on off. Now this is nothing but this controls the lamp for the photocell right down here. That's where the photocell and the lamp sits. The lamp sits here and the photocell goes inside this. That's what is from a front panel control perspective, and this is all part of the amplifier assembly. And on the other side of the amplifier we have 2 more controls. This is basically to set the level of input from the photocell. You basically adjust it until you get a clean voice without any noise. This is for microphone input. Now on model 40 you have a volume control for the microphone input. Now, the microphone is used to do PA announcement as part of the film, or in case if you're playing a silent film you kind of narrate it. Coming back over here, this is your rewind and off switch. Apparently if you look at the switch position, this looks like it's more maybe for the European market, I'm not sure, because the off is on the top and this is on. And of course this is the main projector lamp and the motor control. So this is what turns on the motor and the projector lamp, which is in this lamp housing. This is the main on off control, or this is what actually engages the belt, as you have seen before, and that in turn starts running the whole projector assembly. This controller is for single frame or movie. So if you put this into here, it's going to be in single frame mode, which basically controls the light which goes out through the lamp. Let me show that to you in terms of what happens when you press that control. Take the lamp housing out. This is the lamp socket. If you can see, right now this is in movie mode, and if I put it into single frame, it's going to insert this filter in there so that it controls the amount of light which it passes through, so that it doesn't burn or melt the film. And if I put it back, it comes back. This is the speed control for silent and films with sound. This is used to release the shutter engagement or the motor engagement, wherein this is how you engage it, and then if you press this, it's going to come off. And this particular locking mechanism here, if you see, that has got a switch linked into it, as I've said before. This is used to reverse the film movement by a couple of frames, I believe. That's why they have a switch which is connected to it. And of course that's the take-up spool, and that's the feed spool. I've lubricated everything, probably a little bit too much, but you know, things were locked up. Oh yeah, this is another control which I missed. This is used to manually move the film. So you can see as I turn this, the whole thing is moving around, including the take-up spool. A couple of connectors in the back. This is of course to the exciter lamp, which is a 5-volt lamp. That's a main power to the lamp and the motor, and this is the audio output from the photocell, and all three of them connect back into the amplifier unit which is sitting there. So the plan is to see if this whole thing works. If it is working, then I will go ahead and try to think of restoring this, not restoring, rather rebuilding this case for it. But until I know it's working, I'm not going to waste my cycles on rebuilding the frame. Two other parts which might be of interest. One is the lens. I was able to clean it up completely. You can disassemble this into individual lenses actually. So I've kind of opened it up totally and cleaned it and polished it a little bit as well so that it looks clean. So the lens assembly is also clean. I can see it through pretty well. So do the sound lens. Now the sound lens is a very tiny piece of lens which is sitting here. I hope you can see the slit now. The vertical slit, what you see here. So I'm going to clean it with alcohol, remove the oil residue from all the areas where the film is going through, and then let me see if it's going to work. One more piece of information around these red rollers. They are called as trip rollers. The film is basically threaded around these rollers in its path. Basically the film comes in, goes through this, blah 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 blah. I'll show it to you later in detail, but what happens is in case if the film gets excessive stress or tension, that's going to trip the whole motor and stop the projector. So let me show you how it works. In case if this roller gets excessive stress due to jammed film or whatever, it can trip it, or even up over here or over here, where it's used both to stop the film as well as in case if there is excessive stress, it will release it as well. Back to bench. I've installed the exciter lamp, connected the amplifier. As I said before, this is the pickup from the photocell, and of course this is the main power which is plugged in. And I haven't put the main lamp yet because that's going to be way too bright, I believe, but I've put the exciter lamp, and I'm going to use my big variac this time because this guy can take close to 10 amps of power, so I need this big boy to do the job for me. So as usual, plugged it using the jumbo cord, and I'm going to power it on, put the exciter into on position, power switch to on position. I'll keep the rewind off as well as the projector off, and the projector belt or the shutter is disengaged, and let me power up the variac and see if my exciter is glowing. There you go. So the exciter is working, so the sound system should be alive. This is just with 50 volts. Let me crank it up to full blown 110 and see how much it's gonna go. That's pretty bright. This is a 5 volt 6.5 amps lamp for records, and this one is 110. The one which goes in here is 110 and 1000 watts or 950 watts if I'm correct. Since the exciter is working, I'm going to install the sound drum and lock it in position. If you've seen before, I've already installed the lens. So now if I pull this out and apply the power, I should see the light coming out of the sound head. You can see that thin line. So that's all good. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm not going to install the lamp until the last stage, because if I have the lamp, it's going to be first too hot, second in case if something is messed up, it's gonna fry the film. So I'll start testing by putting a small film in there and see if it's gonna move the whole film, thread it through back and forth. And if it's all working, then I'll try with the lamp as the last attempt. Okay, this is after threading the film. Uh, comes from the reel here, goes in through these guide rollers, make sure that the sprockets are properly engaged, drives all the way through here into the actual shutter assembly. And you have sprockets here as well, which you need to make sure that are properly linked in. And then once it's in, you close the shutter assembly, comes out through this, loops around, then gets into the sound drum. Out of the sound drum again, you need to make sure that the sprockets are properly locked into the film. Goes out, back into this what do you call it, the trip wheels, and then again through the next sprocket assembly, goes out through the tension roller to the guide roller into the take-up rail. And remember, you need to twist this belt so that the take-up rail is rotating in the counterclockwise clockwise direction. Right, so it's all set, and I've tested it manually using this manual roller to see if it's gonna take the film and feed it forward. And you can see, if you see the movement here, he always skips the film by the exact frame size, not just linear movement. That's how you get a shot clearly. It's kind of interesting to see that the film is not really going straight. It kind of goes here and then comes out this way and then gets in. And yeah, that's about it, more or less. So I'm gonna try it a little bit more, and then I'm gonna give it a try by powering it up with Variac next. And now I've put it on projector on, of course no lamp yet, and I'm gonna power it up with the Variac. I've engaged the lever so that the film starts feeding, and let me power it up and see if the film is going to be moving on, or is it going to break apart, or I don't know. Let's see. By the way, before I start, I have switched off the exciter, I've switched off the amplifier as well, because I don't need those two pieces at this point in time, so they are off. I'm just going to run only the projector. And that's the power going up. It's alive. And I can see the regulator is also working, because I don't see any variation in the motor speed from 80 volts and above. So the governor, not the regulator, is working. The governor is the same mechanism what you would see in an old diesel engine fuel pump, in case if you guys are familiar with the automotives. It's the same governor mechanism sitting at the back of a motor to control the speed. And it's beautiful. It's going through as of now. I don't see anything breaking or squeaking or complaining. And the take-up wheel is also good. Okay, that's the next step of testing with the light. And those blinds are going to be my screen. And my G tube caddy is sitting as a box to give me the height so that the projector can go over there. And everything is moved onto another room, and I'm going to try testing it now. That's it. And there you go. I can adjust the shutter height and position and stuff like that. So do the focus. Ah, beautiful. So it is alive. Another documentary around the war, I believe. Again, this is a silent film, no soundtrack, but it's pretty clear. Something interesting which I found in the reel. Since the projector was working, I've decided to fix the cabinet, and the plan is to, take it apart in pieces and remove the liner all the hardware and replace whatever panels which are bad, and then put it back together, and then cover it with close-it liner, and maybe clean all the hardware using electrolysis, and that's the next step. I'm not going to elaborate on the cabinet work, but that's how it is now. I'm replacing some of the parts which were bad, and took out the clothing which was wrapped around the whole shelf, and those are some of the parts which are bad and removed. The cabinet work was a bigger project than what I anticipated. It took really long time to fix everything back together. I haven't recorded that because that's not really something which is entertaining. But couple of interesting points is one, these hardware, some of them are brass parts. Even though they've painted it in black color, it is actually brass. So when I did electrolysis, it started showing up its true color. So I just washed it, and there were a couple of parts which were just steel, so I painted them in black. After several weeks of effort, I've put the cabinet back together. I don't have a garage, and neither have the tools. So I couldn't do a perfect rebuild. I had to rather do a patch up to fix things and replace the piece of wood which was bad rather than rebuilding the whole thing. And I've used electrolysis to clean all the parts like this, the metal assemblies. Most of them are brass or copper plated. So what I did was I did electrolysis to take out all the rust and paint and everything, and then I cleaned it and did a coat of clear enamel on top of it. So that's what you see this finish. Okay, that's a cabinet after finishing all the rework and installing all the hardware, the wells and bezels, and the only piece which is remaining is a handle. Otherwise it's all done. And I could have done these with black screws, but it's okay. That's the interior and the front. So now I'm ready to install the projector onto this. Okay, that's a unit with a projector installed in it. I'm yet to put the handle on top, which is probably going to be later. That's the unit. These are the belts which are standing out, and that's a projector inside. This is the speaker cable which I made with the right connector. That's about it. Okay, time to try some film with sound. So just a quick note, it's easy to identify a 16mm film with and without sound, because on a silent film you will have sprocket holes on both sides, and on a sound one you will have it only on one side. So I bought some film, and it's threaded, and of course the projector is sitting in its new cabinet. I've hooked up the speaker as well, and connected it to one of the speakers which I picked up from my video conferencing system. So now let's see. That's a projector in operation. Of course it's noisy.
Delegation arrives in a specially chartered plane. More than 100 delegations will take part in this great 18th modern Olympiad.
And once the show is done, to rewind, this is what you do. You take it off, then rewind. You have to hook this belt manually in this version to do the rewind. So you keep this belt disconnected on normal case, and when it's time to rewind, you connect it.